Welcome to part 3 of the Runescape Weekly Security Series. In this part, we will discuss anti-exploit and mitigation of malware, host intrusion prevention systems, software firewalls and network intrusion detection, browser extensions for security and privacy, and more. If you haven't had a chance yet, go back and check out part 2 where we covered keeping your operating system up to date, backed up, and your PC secure with a quality antivirus solution. Alright, without further ado, let's dive in. Alright, our first topic of this video will be anti-exploit software and how to mitigate threats that may have permeated your defenses. As stated in the last video, there are situations in which an antivirus can fail. This is unfortunately the case with any form of security. So what happens when your first line of defense becomes compromised? Is that it? Well, thankfully no. There are many suites out there that offer protection above and beyond just scanning for viruses. They are generally referred to as anti-exploit software and may employ a host of tricks to protect your operating system's vital areas. There are many paid solutions and a few free. I will only be covering the free solutions and recommending my favorite. First off, we have Malwarebytes Anti-Exploit. This is by far the most user-friendly anti-exploit program I have ever encountered. It is rather new to the game, but with Malwarebytes brand behind it, you know it has all the quality and security you expect from Malwarebytes. You may be wondering what benefits anti-exploit adds to your existing defenses. To put it simply, anti-exploit will kick in when your antivirus fails to notice or is incapable of defending against a specific type of attack, commonly referred to as an exploit. An exploit, by definition, is a technique used to take advantage of a weakness in a program and force it to run code in a way that it was never intended to. This can be as simple as forcing an application to crash all the way to executing code from a remote server on your machine. The latter can lead to what some refer to as drive-by downloading of malicious software, such as a remote access Trojan or keylogger. Anti-exploit, by definition, does not detect the Trojan or keylogger, but instead the process that occurs before the remote access Trojan or keylogger is able to download itself via said exploit. This effectively stops the process before it's too late. You can think of anti-exploit as a security offer checking bags at a gate. If a program or script wants to run, anti-exploit checks out exactly what it's doing as it occurs and stops it flat out before it has a chance to actually finish executing and cause harm to your system. The free version of Malwarebytes Anti-Exploit is enough for most users' general use. It can be downloaded from Malwarebytes' website, and a link will be provided in the description of this video. Anti-exploit is a great layer of protection to add to your computer. It can also be coupled with another powerful security layer referred to as HIPS, or Host Intrusion Prevention System. HIPS comes standard on some internet security software, but not all. HIPS also scans for changes made to critical operating system areas and registry values. You can generally find out if you have HIPS enabled in your antivirus by going into advanced settings. If you are using a free antivirus, it may not have HIPS installed alongside it. In this case, you can use software such as Spybot Search and Destroy or WinPatrol. Both of these programs will offer HIPS protection, but can be confusing and daunting for the average user. If you wish to learn more about Spybot or WinPatrol, I will include links in the description on where to download them. On that note, a simpler way to manage HIPS comes in the form of internet security. If you are running a free antivirus or a bare-bones paid antivirus that doesn't cover firewalls, you may wish to get a software firewall running alongside your other security tools. A firewall's job is to inspect data as it passes to and from your PC. In a nutshell, the firewall inspects the data inside the packets and cross-references them against a set of rules it has to determine whether the data should be sent or received. Once it makes a decision, the data is either blocked or passed along. Some firewalls will also use heuristic detection to enhance security by looking deeply into the packet. This is a very broad overview of how stateful packet inspection and heuristics work. All you need to know is whether or not your firewall has these features or not. My personal recommendations for free firewalls would either be Komodo Internet Security or Checkpoint's Zone Alarm. Both of these firewalls offer great protection. From my personal experience, I have found Komodo's firewall to be a bit more robust feature-wise, however, it can be overwhelming for some users. My general recommendation in this scenario is to try out Komodo, and if you feel overwhelmed, remove it and use Zone Alarm. Both aforementioned firewalls also offer paid pro versions that offer even more features and less nagging. Consider upgrading if you enjoy the product and want the full host of benefits that come along with the pro versions. Links will be included in the description of this video for both products. Next up, let's talk about infection mitigation. In the event that you do get infected or your computer was infected previously to installing a more hardened security solution, mitigation of threats is important before resuming normal online habits. First and foremost, I have to say that if you do suspect your computer to be infected, it is generally a good idea to bring in an IT professional for cleaning. If you are willing to undertake the task yourself, there are great tools out there that will aid you in cleaning your machine. I will only be covering one at the moment due to its ease of use and unlikeliness to cause irreparable system damage. The tool I'm speaking about is, yes, everyone's favorite, Malwarebytes Anti-Malware. Malwarebytes Anti-Malware, or MBAM for short, is one of the world's most powerful use-once tools you can have in your library. It is extremely good at removing persistent and obscure infections that slip by typical antivirus programs. This probably doesn't come as a surprise to most people that MBAM has become a common tool in an IT professional's toolbox. When I worked for a large antivirus company and all our tools failed or caused system damage, we would begrudgingly recommend the tried and true removal prowess of MBAM. You can use MBAM for free as a removal tool or pay for it to run in the background alongside your antivirus. I generally recommend you run it once a week or more if you are disciplined enough to remember, as you can't schedule scans in the free version rather than pay for the on-access scanner, as 98% of the time your security suite will suffice. I truly love this tool, and I recommend you at least have it installed on your system and ready in case of an emergency. Now that we've covered my favorite mitigation tool, let's move along to browser and extensions for security and privacy. There are many browsers out there to choose from. It may seem like a pretty basic thing to think about, but your browser is what's serving you the websites you visit. It is the engine that renders the rich multimedia that you view, and its defensive capabilities are an important line of defense between the internet and your computer. As many are probably aware, the major choices are between Microsoft, Mozilla, and Google. Yes, there are others out there, but these companies hold the vast market share. First off, due to the lack of third-party extension support, Microsoft is immediately stricken from the list as a viable choice. That leaves us with Mozilla's Firefox and Google's Chrome browser. Both of these browsers are fine choices and have excellent API support for extension developers. This has fostered a rich library of add-ons available for both browsers. If you are not using either Firefox or Chrome, I suggest you switch to one of those. Which browser you choose can be boiled down to which company you trust more with your data. If you are paranoid about privacy or have something against Google, Firefox is a great choice. On the other hand, if you trust Google or don't mind your data being inspected, Chrome is a great choice as well. Chrome will give you much better warnings when a website you are about to visit is infected or possibly a phishing site due to Google's massive blacklist that they have assembled from crawling the web. Firefox will offer some level of warning, but in my opinion, is not nearly as effective as Google. Another thing to take into consideration is plugin support. Firefox no longer supports Flash, which may be an issue for some people, and on the other hand, Chrome has its own built-in Flash, in which can be considered a security threat by some people. It really depends on which way you want to look at it. I will cover extensions that will make both browsers inherently more secure and less promiscuous with your data. Keep in mind, these extensions modify web pages to remove or block the scripts that make an attempt to track you. This can interfere with the loading of a web page or possibly break the website altogether. In the event a page is not loading properly, disable your privacy add-ons one by one until the page loads correctly. You can now either whitelist the site if you trust it, or disable the add-on that is causing the problem with that site and re-enable the rest. My first major recommendation is Ghostery for Firefox and Chrome. Ghostery is a handy tool that blocks trackers, beacons, analytics, and some ad networks. It is customizable so that you can choose which type of traffic you want blocked. It also has fantastic granularity. You can easily turn on a single tracker or analytic if you so desire to. For example, by default, Ghostery will block Google Analytics. You can click the Ghostery tab and simply click the slider to allow only that specific analytic while leaving other analytic trackers blacklisted. Next up is uBlock Origin for Firefox and Chrome. uBlock Origin is similar to that of AdBlock Plus, which a lot of people may already be familiar with. I personally prefer uBlock Origin due to the fact that it supports multiple custom lists that can be added to increase the type of ads it blocks. uBlock goes above and beyond just blocking annoying ads. uBlock also provides the ability to completely block domains associated with tracking users or installing malware. This is a true step above simply blocking annoying forms of advertising. Remember to configure your ad blocker to only block intrusive ads that track data and not all advertising. Advertising is a necessary evil to keep free services free. However, when certain ad networks take advantage of the users attempting to view said ads by tracking them across the web without their consent, I have no remorse recommending uBlock Origin. For Firefox users, see the link in the description to find uBlock Origin. Chrome users should have no problem finding it in the extension store. Next up is Privacy Badger for Firefox and Chrome. Privacy Badger by Electronic Frontier Foundation is another wonderful tracking blocker that sends the do not track request to each website you visit and then follows up with a report on what trackers it found and what action was taken. Action taken can range from blocked completely to not allowing the website to read or refer to cookies on your system, as well as reporting if the domain is not actively tracking you at all. Please note that Privacy Badger is in alpha. It is a promising piece of anti-tracking technology that is certainly worth addressing. However, I have found it to cause browser slowdown on some websites and is often the culprit when a website doesn't load correctly. If you choose to use Privacy Badger and encounter an error loading a website, turning off Privacy Badger for that URL is generally the solution. Next up is HTTPS Everywhere for Firefox and Chrome. HTTPS Everywhere does exactly what its name implies. It attempts to force an HTTPS connection when possible. HTTPS is the secure version of the Hypertext Transfer Protocol. This means data transmitted over HTTPS is encrypted and cannot be viewed by anyone who may be watching traffic over the network. HTTPS Everywhere will attempt to force an HTTPS connection when possible to increase the overall security. If HTTPS is not an option, the connection will default back to HTTP, so keep that in mind. We will cover HTTP versus HTTPS very shortly. My next plugin of choice is Flash Control for Chrome. Flash Control is another extension with a self-explanatory title. By default, it disables Flash in Chrome, allowing you to enable it on a site-by-site basis. This prevents unwanted Flash ads from playing as well as Flash exploits from running. This is a handy way to have Flash when needed without it always loading by default. Keep in mind this is not necessary for Firefox, as Firefox does not allow Flash. Finally, we have the Web of Trust for Firefox and Chrome. The Web of Trust is a crowdsourced platform that lets its millions of users rate websites based on safety and then share the data with others. Again, you are allowing this data to be passed to and from the Web of Trust, so a level of trust needs to be given to the service itself. If you do not mind the URLs you are visited being scanned by Web of Trust, then this is a fantastic way to get a website rating before you even click on it. The list of extensions that provide security change and evolve quite regularly. At the time of recording this, these are my favorite. If this list becomes too far out of date, I will make an effort to bring them back in line. If you have any questions regarding this or any previously mentioned extensions, feel free to leave a comment below and I will address you. Let's move on to our final section of this episode here, which is reading URLs as well as HTTP versus HTTPS. Now that we have covered some of the extensions that can keep you safe and secure, let's talk about the protocol that keeps all of our data that we transmit safe and secure. This will be a broad overview as the technical details are not really important. HTTP, as I stated earlier, is the Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It is the most commonly used protocol for fetching and receiving web pages. By design, HTTP is not secure. Any data passed over HTTP can be read by anyone who is listening in on that connection. This can be a huge problem if the data being sent is sensitive. You can determine whether or not your data is secure by looking at the URL bar of your browser of choice. Most browsers use a green lock icon to indicate HTTPS. If you do not see a green lock, chances are you are not on a secure connection. You can generally click on the URL or URL icon to expand it out and get more detailed information about the type of connection you have to that website. Now that we understand the difference between a secure connection and an insecure connection, let's talk about the URL itself. Understanding how to read a URL is important to not getting phished. We will go into detail on different types of phishing later in this series, but for now, let's take a look at URLs. Okay, so moving over to my computer here, as you'll notice I have runescape.com up on my screen here. So I'm using Chrome as an example. Let me just preface that here. So as you'll notice here, we have www.runescape.com/community. So let's kind of break that information down. So first of all, you'll see a white page icon here. You will notice there's no green lock, nothing like that. You just have this little page icon. You can click on this, and this is pretty much the same as well in Firefox, but if you click on that here, it's going to let you know here you're connected to runescape.com. Your connection to this site is not private. That's very important to be noted there. And you'll notice HTTP is not generally displayed unless it is secure, because otherwise it's just, if you don't see HTTPS, it's not secure. So let's break this down. What do we see here? We see www. That's letting it know this is the World Wide Web. We are connecting to the World Wide Web. And then we have the actual domain here, which is RuneScape. That is the domain. That is the location that we are. That is the destination that we're attempting to get to on the web. This equates to some sort of IP address, of course. And .com is the top level domain. That is, pretty much explaining to, well, again, it's part of the destination. Different top-level domains can be issued, and obviously com is a very common one. No pun intended there, meant. But after that, we have a slash, and anything following the slash here are directories within that domain site. For instance, we have community, which is going to be a folder somewhere on the RuneScape server that's going to hold all of the data that you are seeing here. It's going to be displayed for you after it's processed by the web server, and then your browser interprets that, yada, yada, yada. So this is a very basic example of a URL here. Pretty simple, easy to understand and read. Nothing too fancy about this one. Let's look at something a little more complicated, shall we? So here's the RuneScape login screen. And of course, I'm going to censor this out, but nonetheless, what we're going to be looking at is up at the top bar here. So you'll notice there is now a green lock, and as well it says Jagex Limited. And if you click on that, you can expand it out, and it will tell you that you are connected to a Jagex Limited owned domain. Your connection is private, which is good. So again, you'll see that this is a private connection, and the information that is listed here is provided by the certificate authority. Whoever issued this certificate claims that this is a private connection, and it will show you here in the connection tab. The identity of Jagex Limited at Cambridge has been verified by DigiCert. So again, DigiCert is the company that has verified and looked into, and again, you don't need to know the majority of this detail. All you really want to see is there green? Is it got a lock on it? Now, that doesn't necessarily indicate that you are safe on a website, but it will indicate that you are, at the very least, passing the data to and from secure. So there's no man in the middle able to sniff your data, but you still need to have a trust, with the website that you're on, because, private data issued between two parties still has some level of trust requirement between the two parties. So if you don't trust the website you're on, then, the trust is just as good as that. So again, obviously we trust Jagex, so we know that we trust who we're giving this information to, so that's fine. And we know no one is going to be listening in between. But then again, let's look at here. So we see HTTPS, very important. You'll notice no www. www is generally implied. You won't see www all the time. So what we can assume here is that we have runescape.com, but what's before this here? Secure.runescape.com. This is called a subdomain. It is totally fine for there to be a subdomain or sometimes even multiple before a website. A website can have multiple of these. It doesn't, necessarily just have one or two or three. It can have hundreds of different subdomains. So for instance, right here we have secure.runescape.com, which is probably where they're storing their data for secure login forms. That makes sense, right? So again, we want to kind of disregard the subdomain here. What's more important is the actual domain, which is RuneScape. Again, we're still on RuneScape. .com. We know what a com is. We know it's a top-level domain. You know, there's com, net, org, you know, co, cc. There's hundreds of them. Today, radio. There's so many of them now. It's not even funny. So as we can see here, we have pretty much runescape.com. That's the most important thing that you want to see here, is the fact that it's, you know, we see RuneScape, we see com, and then what's important is we don't see any more periods after com. You will never see, .com, I'm a hacker, .so, because you're always going to look for that last dot. If there is no, if com is not the last dot, then this is not truly... Then RuneScape becomes a subdomain of com, which is a subdomain of I'm a hacker.so. And that's what you need to really look for. The last dot and top level domain will indicate where you truly are at. So we're no longer at runescape.com. We're now actually at I'm a hacker.so. And then anything after here is pretty much inconsequential. That's just data on the server. Again, if you see here, if we remove the stuff that I added here, runescape.com, this is just folders that exist. This could be folders and data that is being passed back in the form of, could be PHP, could be any sort of server-side language that is just passing data along. They're using .ws here, which again is just a form of scripting. It's not important. It's what you see after the last TLD D over here, the last TLD. So let's take another example here. Now this is a very legitimate looking one. It's using HTTPS, but look where it's going here. It is secure-runescape.co.com. So that's, you can see here, it is a subdomain of co.com. Com being, again, the TLD here, the top level domain. Co being the website, and secure-runescape is nothing more than a subdomain of co.com. Now, I have no idea what co.com even, if I can even type it correctly, but co.com, I have no idea exactly what that is. It looks like get the .com you've always wanted. So you see here, as you'll notice here, I could buy runescape.co.com. I probably can't, but I could just do runescape-secure.co.com. If I search for this, you'll notice it's available. You know, it's been removed here. I could get any number of these co.coms that look pretty legit. They look fairly legit. Now, the problem with that is, you'll also notice here, it's over HTTPS and it says jagex limited. Now, you can't issue fake SSL certificates. It's possible. I can't click on this, obviously, to expand it out, but I guarantee you the information would not match up with RuneScape's over here. If I were to go, let me reload this so I can bring the lock back up. I've messed with the URL too much for it to appear anymore. It would not give you this information, digicert, yada yada yada. Viewing the certificate information, you know, it's not going to give you a valid signer here. Is what I'm trying to say here. That's like, you can really dig in and check that stuff out. So just looking at the lock alone may or may not, give you the information that you're truly looking for here. That's mainly what you want to look at, is the URL, and ignore the certificate. That's the most important thing, is really where is the domain coming from. That's what you really, really want to look at there. So that's basically how to read a URL for safety. So that's going to conclude part 3 of our PC and account security series. I hope you found the information useful. If you have, please like the video and feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions or you just want to give me feedback on the series thus far. Next week, we will return to talk about voice over IP amongst a lot of other things. So I'll see you then. And as always, happy escaping.